All right, so this is going to be the most important video on making money that I have ever made, which is what you're going to see in just a second. But here's the truth, and seriously, don't get mad. But if you cannot lock in for the next 30 to 45 minutes and watch a video on how to get rich because you've got the attention span of a goldfish, you're never going to get rich. But if you decide to watch this video, you will understand exactly how the 1% do it. So I'll leave that decision up to you. But before we dive in, if you are a real estate agent and you're working nights and weekends, chasing around flaky buyers, and you're not earning at least $10,000 a month, I built an online course that shows you exactly how to change that. You'll learn how to build a predictable multi-six-figure business as a listing agent, working just 4 to 5 days a week. And so if you want, you can access that right now for free. Just click the link in the description to get started. All right, so let's start with time. You see, most people think that time is linear. I work today, I get paid today. I make calls this week, I should see closings this week. But as you know, that's not how real estate works. Time is more like a delayed echo. And so just imagine shouting into a canyon. At first, you hear what? Nothing. Silence. You start wondering if the sound even carried. Then suddenly, all at once, the echo comes roaring back. Well, that's exactly how results work in this business. You do the right things today, prospecting follow-up, sending CMAs, and it feels like silence. But then what happens? Months later, the echo hits. Appointments start happening, listings start coming, referrals start coming in. If you don't understand this, you will give up in the silence. You'll assume nothing is working right before the payoff. So psychologists call this problem the temporal discounting. This is just a fancy word for saying the further away the reward is, the less value our brains assign to it. So that's why eating a donut feels much more rewarding than eating a salad, because the sugar high is instant, but the health benefit of the salad is delayed. So a great example of how this works is in the 1960s, psychologists ran, which you probably are aware of, the famous marshmallow experiment, where they gave kids the choice. They said, listen, you can have one marshmallow right now, or you can wait 15 minutes and get 2 marshmallows. Well, there's no surprise. What did most kids do? Most kids ate the marshmallow right now versus waiting the 15 minutes. And here's the fascinating part, that decades later, the kids who actually delayed gratification, who waited for the second, had higher SAT scores, better careers, healthier relationships, and they also proved that they made more money throughout their career. Why? Because they had trained themselves to value the long game over the quick win. Well, real estate is the same. Every day, you're facing a marshmallow test. Do I pick up the phone and prospect for future listings, or do I scroll Instagram for the quick hit of dopamine? Do I send a CMA to that past client with no guarantee they'll list, or do I just simply chase the next shiny object that's promising instant appointments? See, your future is decided by which marshmallow you choose, which brings us right into something called the delay curve. So let's talk about this. So let's put this into a graph. So imagine 2 lines. The first line is simply your memory of the hard work, your memory of the effort you put in the past. See, when you start something new, your memory of the work is crystal clear. You remember every single call, every time you got the rejection, every time you got the objection, every text you sent. But over time, that memory fades. You forget the work that you did. So the second line is your results. When you start, results are basically what? They're basically 0. So you're prospecting, but nothing's happening. You're posting content, but no one's calling, no one's commenting, no leads are coming in. Then, months later, the curve shoots upward. All at once, listings, referrals, inbound calls all start to come in. Now, here's the problem. Your memory of the effort fades before the result curve rises. That's the silent stretch, the danger zone, the weeks where you're working hard, but nothing is happening. And this is where most agents actually quit. They switch strategies, they jump CRMs, they go to the new company, they buy the new lead thing. They never stick around long enough to let the compounding curve kick in. But for the few who hold the line, who keep prospecting, following up, nurturing, etc., they cross the curve. Results spike, pipeline fills, momentum compounds, money starts coming in. And from the outside, it looks like they are an overnight success. But it wasn't overnight. It was months of invisible consistency. This is what psychological bias is at play. Here's why the curve is so hard to trust. See, your brain is hardwired for something called recency bias. This is you overvaluing what just happened. If yesterday's call didn't book an appointment, you assume prospecting doesn't even work. You also suffer from negativity bias, where your brain remembers rejection more vividly than the successes that you have, the small wins that you have. You'll remember the one nasty phone call that you had where the person hung up, but you forget about the 5 good conversations that you had. And then there's the present bias. This is when we all prefer rewards now rather than later. That's why most agents spend hours designing their logo instead of spending hours on the phone prospecting. One feels rewarding immediately, the other doesn't pay off for months. So if you don't understand these biases, they'll sabotage your success. You'll think the problem is you or your script or the market, but really it's just your brain misrepresenting the delay curve. So let's tie this all back to where it belongs, your identity. You see, the question isn't, how do I prospect better? Or what script should I use? Or what are the best leads? And what is the best CRM? See, those are all the wrong questions. The deeper question is this: can I become the type of agent who trusts the delay curve? Can I become the type of person who stays consistent through the silence when I can't see the results? Because if you do, you win by default. Most of your competition will quit. They'll stop. They'll switch. They'll chase the next shiny object. They'll bounce from one thing to the next. They do not have what I call stick-to-itiveness. But you, if you keep planting these seeds, you show up every day, you continue to put in the work, you will finally see the curve produce results. You'll be the one harvesting listings, getting your unfair share of listings while everyone else is starting from scratch. All right, so now let's start covering something called the trap of short-term thinking. All right, so the trap of short-term thinking is where most agents, they don't fail because they're lazy or they don't have ambition or they're not motivated. No, they fail because they've been hypnotized by right now. And it's not all their fault. Our culture trains us to believe that if something doesn't produce results instantly, it's not worth it. You've been conditioned for speed, convenience, and shortcuts. Think about your phone. Scroll through Instagram or TikTok, and you're bombarded with transformation reels. The flashy 6-figure month, the overnight body transformation, the dream house. What don't you see is the 5 years of the quiet work behind these results. Your brain is learning from those images. It's being trained to crave outcomes without process, reward without patience, victory without paying the price. And that's the lethal issue in real estate, because this business doesn't move on social media timelines. It moves on human timelines. So when we look at dopamine and the brain's reward system, here's what's actually happening scientifically. Every time you check your phone and you see a like, a notification, or even just a new text, your brain releases a small shot of dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical of anticipation. It feels good because it signals something rewarding just happened or is about to happen. So the more you chase these quick hits, the more your brain becomes wired to prefer the instant over the delayed. Psychologists call the instant gratification bias. And like any drug, it builds tolerance. See, the first few likes felt amazing. Now you need more likes, more notifications, more novelty to feel the same rush. Meanwhile, the harder, slower, long game tasks like prospecting, tracking your numbers, nurturing leads, that feels really boring, heavy, even painful by comparison. So what do? You default to the easy now. You scroll instead of dialing. You tweak your Canva posts instead of following up. You binge YouTube instead of practicing your listing presentation. All the while, you're training yourself to be the kind of person who chooses comfort today over confidence tomorrow, which brings us right into the short-term cycle of self-destruction. And here's how that cycle looks in real life. See, number one, you start a new routine. Maybe you start a new prospecting thing. You start a new coaching program. You started a new company, et cetera. Start a new team. You start doing the work. You start prospecting, video marketing, farming, et cetera. And so number two, you don't see instant results from anything that you start new. Nobody does. Nobody books an appointment. Nobody comments on the content. No one responds to your mailer. And then number three, you feel disappointed. Your brain says, see, this isn't working, which then leads to number four. You quit the habit and then you chase something else, a new lead source, a new market, a new brokerage, a new hack. And you continue to repeat the cycle over and over and over again. And each time you quit early, you don't just lose momentum, you train the nervous system to distrust consistency. You're literally wiring your brain to believe effort equals disappointment. That's the root of hopelessness. And once hopelessness sets in, agents don't just struggle, they quit. They disappear from the industry. And here's what's crazy. Here's why real estate in this industry that we're in magnifies this problem. It's because real estate makes the trap even worse because the delay is longer than what we've experienced in most jobs. See, if you're in retail and you work today, you get paid this week. If you're in corporate, you see progress this quarter and you get a bonus. But in real estate, as you know, the lag between effort and payoff is brutal. You might prospect for 60, 90, 120 days before seeing any type of results. That delay is enough to break the average agent. That's why the dropout rate in real estate is so high. It's not because the business is impossible. It's because the human brain hates delays. And unless you rewire your brain on how to think about time, you'll always default back to the short-term thinking. Another reason agents fall into short-term thinking is what I call zooming in too close. You see, you obsess over one call, one text, one showing, one video, and you measure success by the micro. You say things like, I made 20 dials today, but nothing happened. Or I posted the reel you asked me to post, Brandon, but no one DM'd me. I didn't get any leads. Or I went on one appointment and they listed it with somebody else. See, that's like planting a seed, watering it one time, and then digging up to see if it actually grew. Of course it hasn't grown. It's too soon. Growth doesn't happen instantly. It happens invisibly before it happens obviously. But when you zoom in too close, you lose sight of the trend. You panic at the micro fluctuations and you tell yourself it's not working, when in reality, you just didn't give it enough time to work. So when we look at how short-term thinking justifies itself, the most dangerous thing about short-term thinking isn't just the bad choices that we make along the way. It's how logical those choices feel in the moment. I deserve it. One time won't hurt. I'll start on Monday. Those thoughts disguise sabotage as self-care. They make quitting feel reasonable. Skipping prospecting today doesn't seem like a big deal. It just seems like maybe I'm just giving myself a break, or dropping the diet doesn't feel like that big of a deal. It just feels like I'm just treating myself today. Ignoring my follow-ups feels like, I just don't want to be so pushy. But each one of these are little justifications that chip away at your potential. And because the damage doesn't show up instantly, you believe you got away with it. And you didn't. The bill just hasn't arrived yet. So let me give you a couple of examples of how this short-term thinking shows up so we can make this really concrete. So when we look at prospecting as an example, you call for a week, no listings happen. You quit. Then 3 months later, those homeowners do what? They list with somebody else. I see it all the time with agents that I coach. They talk to somebody, they meet with somebody, they stop following up, and then they go check the MLS. And it's like, dang, that person listed with somebody else. Happens all the time. Or when you look at an agent who's doing some type of long-term geographic farming, they send 2 postcards, no one responds, then they stop investing in their direct mail campaign. But the agent who sends postcards consistently for years and years and years, they own that neighborhood. And to you, you look at that agent as like this overnight success. You're comparing your chapter 1 to their chapter 20. You're saying, okay, well, I made like content, for example. You look at an agent who's crushing it with content or social media, and you say, okay, well, you post 3 market updates. Nobody cares. Nobody likes. No one comments. No one opts into your lead magnet. And then you abandon it. But meanwhile, you don't understand that the agent who's crushing it with social media has been posting content daily for 2.5 years to get the results they're getting right now. And in each case, the actions, they were working. You just didn't wait long enough for the payoff. You confused silence with failure. And so the identity that you create of short-term thinking is really, really dangerous. And here's the real danger of it. Every time you quit early, you're not just losing progress. You are shaping literally your future self. In other words, your identity. You're becoming the agent who starts strong but never finishes. The agent who jumps from one shiny object to the next. The agent who can't be trusted to stick to anything. That's not just bad news for your business. It's bad for your self-belief because deep down, you know, I don't keep promises to myself. Now, contrast that with another agent who stays consistent in everything that they do. Even if the results haven't shown up yet, they're building the identity of someone who can be trusted, of someone who stays the course. And when the payoff hits, it's exponential. It's literally just a matter of time before success comes to those agents. All right, so how do we actually break free from the trap? Well, the answer isn't passive patience, it's active patience. So passive patience is waiting around hoping something changes, where you know hope is simply not a strategy. Active patience is consistent. It's deliberate action with the full awareness that results will take time. It's setting the appointment goals, making the dials, logging the follow-ups, knowing you won't see the harvest for months, but trusting the process anyways. It's committing to being the type of person who says, I don't stop just because the scoreboard hasn't updated yet. And psychology is in your favor. You see, you have to reframe the delay. And so one powerful hack of reframing the delay is a filter. So think about it like this. The delay is what eliminates your competition. If results were instant, everyone would be successful. But because results are delayed, only the few who stay consistent actually survive. So instead of resenting the delay, thank it. It's protecting your market share by filtering out the inconsistent. So every day you show up without immediate reward, you're proving you're in the top 1% who can outlast the silence. That's identity. That's real power. All right, let's get into part 3. So we're going to talk about compounding choices plus habit psychology. So the law of compounding choices. So everything in your life and everything in your business is the result of what? Small choices that are repeated. This is straight out of my favorite book from one of my greatest mentors, Darren Hardy, who wrote The Compound Effect. So results don't come from these dramatic, huge leaps. No sudden breakthroughs. Just the little, what seems to be insignificant decisions that you make over time, over and over and over again. So one snooze button instead of one rep. One scroll instead of one dial, one skipped follow-up instead of one reminder. Every little choice is like a single vote for the type of person you're becoming. Every choice that you make is shaping your future self. This is the law of compounding choices, and it's the most underrated force in the world because it doesn't roar, it whispers. It builds silently in the background until one day it shows up and rewrites your reality. a psychologist like BJ Frog and James Clear have shown that habits are not just what you do, they're who you're becoming. So every repeated action reinforces your current identity. You don't have to run a marathon to become a runner. You just have to run consistently. You don't have to close 100 listings a year to become a listing agent. You just have to live like one every single day. So Charles Duhigg, who wrote one of my favorite books, The Power of Habit, explains that habits follow a loop. It's the cue, followed by routine, followed by reward. The more you run the loop, the stronger the habit becomes. And here's the key. Your brain doesn't care whether the habit is good or bad. It will automate whatever you feed it, which means that compounding is neutral. It multiplies anything. If you feed it distraction, it compounds into regret. If you feed it consistency, it compounds into inevitability. So why compounding feels invisible at first? Well, the problem with compounding is that it hides in plain sight. So one skipped prospecting session feels like no big deal. One unhealthy meal feels like not a big deal. One missed follow-up feels like nothing. But the law of compounding says that nothing never stays nothing. Every small choice echoes. Every repetition pushes your trajectory slightly up or slightly down. At first, those micro shifts, they're invisible. But fast forward a year, 5 years, 10 years, and those tiny differences have compounded into completely different realities. That's why you can see two agents who start at the very same time with the same training in the same market, yet 5 years later, one is drowning and the other is dominating. So let me give you some real world examples. So when we look at follow-up, an agent who makes one extra follow-up call per day, that's 250 extra touches over the course of 1 year. Even if only 2% convert, that's 5 additional listings without a single new lead source. When we look at prospecting, an agent who commits to 20 conversations a day versus only 10, that's double the pipeline over 1 year. And it compounds because more conversations equals more listings, equals more just sold signs, which equals more credibility, which equals more inbound referrals from past clients, centers of influence. When we look at content, one video every single day might feel small, but after a year, you've gotten 52 authority building assets online. After 3 years, that's 150 pieces of content. Now you're the agent that people start to recognize, trust, and they start to call first because you've won the top of mind awareness. So here's the deeper truth. Every compounding choice isn't just changing your results, it's changing who you are. Every day you pick up the phone to prospect, you're casting a vote. Am I the type of agent who generates business and not waits for it? Every day you send a CMA, you're voting. I'm the type of person who delivers value, not just asking for business. Every day you follow up, you're casting the vote that I'm the type of person, I'm the kind of agent that people can count on. And the more votes you cast, the stronger your identity becomes. And once identity locks in, consistency becomes effortless because now you're not forcing yourself to act. You're just acting in alignment with who you already are. And compounding doesn't grow in a linear fashion. It grows exponentially. See, at first, like we talked about, progress is painfully slow. You all know this. It's probably why you're watching this video. You do the work, but nothing seems to happen at first. This is where most people quit. But if you hold the line, you hit what's called the inflection point. Suddenly, results take off all at once. And it looks like an overnight success, but it's not. It's years of invisible compounding finally starting to surface. That's why people say, wow, you blew up out of nowhere. No, I didn't blow up out of nowhere. It was compounded. You showed up when nobody noticed, nobody applauded, and nobody cared at first. And then eventually, the curve flipped into your favor. This inflection point is where psychology makes or breaks agents. See, humans are hardwired for linear expectations. If I work twice as hard, I should see twice the results. But compounding doesn't work that way. You might work 100 days straight and see almost no visible change at first. And then on day 101, everything spikes, everything changes. This mismatch between expectation and reality is why so many agents quit so early. They expect linear, but the world delivers exponential. So the winners, they're the ones who know that the curve is exponential. So they stay the course. They stay in the game long enough to see the payoff. And here's the beautiful part. Compounding doesn't just apply to your business. It applies to your entire life. One choice to work out daily, not just better for the body, but more confidence in listing presentations, more energy for prospecting, more resilience in rejection. One choice to read 10 pages a day, not just knowledge, but sharper communication, better negotiations, more persuasive conversations. One choice to invest in your relationships, not just a happier personal life, but stronger referral networks, better client trust, and a reputation as someone that people actually want to work with. See, everything intersects. Every choice leaks into every other part of your life. That's why one good habit can spark a cascade of transformation. But let's not forget that compounding cuts both ways. So one skipped call compounds into two into a week, and a week into a habit. I see it all the time. Now you're the agent who doesn't prospect at all. One night of comfort compounds into months of stagnation. It's death by 1,000 cuts, as I call it. Not because you made one catastrophic decision, but because you made thousands of tiny decisions that all tilted you slightly downward. So how do you make compounding work for you instead of against you? Well, step one is to shrink the habit. So like BJ Fogg calls the tiny habits, make the entry point so small that it's almost impossible to fail. One dial, one video, one CMA. Once you start, momentum carries you. We call it the power of one. Just go to the gym, do one rep, and then watch what happens. Step two, anchor the habit. So attach it to something you already do. For example, after you make a coffee, I do my first 5 dials. Anchoring makes consistency automatically. Then step 3, track the habit. What gets measured compounds faster. A scoreboard makes your wins visible, and it keeps your brain from gaslighting you into thinking you're being inconsistent. Step 4 is to celebrate the habit. See, dopamine is released when you reward yourself. Even small celebrations, like checking off a box or saying, yes, that's me, wires your brain to repeat the behavior. Do this daily, and you're not just changing your schedule, you're changing your identity. Here's the ultimate identity reframe. Don't just say, I want to make more calls. Say, I'm the type of agent who never ends the day without at least having 25 conversations. Don't just say, I want to post more content. Say, I'm the type of agent who educates my community every single week. Don't say, I want more listings. Say, I'm the type of agent who generates listings through consistency, not luck. Because once you identify as that type of agent, your actions follow naturally. All right, so let's talk about the big one now, second order consequences. So this is the hidden layer of your choices. So most people think, again, in linear. They think in straight lines. I do X, I get to Y. I eat a cake, it tastes good. I skip the gym, I feel more rested. I post a video, nobody watches. That's first order thinking. It's immediate, it's obvious, and it's shallow. But life doesn't actually work in straight lines. We've talked about this. Life works more like a web. Every action sends ripples forward. Some hit fast, some hit later. Some even bounce back in ways you never expected. That's second order consequences, the hidden, delayed, compounding effects that only show up with time. And this is where most agents lose the game because they only make decisions based on first order consequences. Let me explain. So here's how this plays out. So first order comfort, sleeping in instead of prospecting, which leads into second order pain, an empty pipeline, panic in 90 days, which equals financial stress in 6 months. Here's a first order comfort, avoiding that uncomfortable pricing conversation with the seller, which turns into the second order pain, an overpriced listing that just sits, grows stale, damages your reputation, and creates a frustrated client. First order comfort, buying leads instead of generating them on your own. Second order pain, weak conversation skills, high dependency, constant churn, and a business you don't control. These decisions feel good today. They feel logical, but the bill always comes due later. So now let's flip that. If we have first order pain, like prospecting every morning, you get second order power, a full pipeline that compounds for years. First order pain, having the tough pricing conversations up front with clients equals second order power. Listings that sell quickly, happy clients, a great reputation for you to get repeat and referral business. First order pain, posting videos every day, every week when nobody watches at first equals second order power. Market authority after just a year. Now you're the agent people recognize and they start to call first. So here's the lesson. Don't judge actions by first order consequences. Judge them by second order consequences. That's how you make decisions like the top producer. So why do we ignore second order consequences? Well, it's really simple. Because the human brain is wired for instant gratification. Psychologists call it present bias. We overvalue what's right in front of us and we undervalue what's far away. That's why people spend $5 on a coffee without thinking, but hesitate to invest $50 into a book that could change their business and their life forever. That's why agents will spend hours perfecting a Canva post. That's that instant gratification, instead of spending a few hours prospecting, which is the delayed gratification. Your brain is tricking you. It's not that prospecting doesn't work. It's just that it doesn't feel like it's working right now. So here's a story that happens all the time. The agent who lands a listing with a seller who wants to overprice it by $50K, the first order thinking is this: well, I'd rather have a listing than not have a listing. So I take the listing. I don't want to upset the client. I'll just figure it out later. Well, here's the second order consequence of that. The home sits, showings don't happen. The sellers start to get angry. And the sellers start blaming you, the agent, not the price. Months later, the listing expires, no paycheck. Worse, damaged reputation. Contrast that with another agent who has the tough conversation up front at the listing appointment, which is the first order pain, an uncomfortable 5 to 10 minute conversation around, listen, we've got to price this correctly. Second order power, the home sells quickly. The sellers are thrilled. They start to refer their friends and family to that agent forever. Same situation, different order of thinking, completely different outcomes. Here's another quick story of the agent who decides to buy leads. So the agent who, instead of working on their skills, wants the easy path. They want the instant gratification. So they start buying internet leads. Well, first order comfort. The illusion of instant opportunities equals second order pain. Low conversion, high churn, spending tons of money, no pipeline, and then once the leads stop converting, they run out of money, have to chase the next shiny object. Meanwhile, the agent who does the first order pain, which is learning how to prospect and generate your leads on your own without spending money, equals second order power. Skills that compound forever, never having to worry where your next client comes from, and a pipeline that pays you for years. So let's talk about the power of seeing not one move, but two moves ahead. So second order thinking is about training yourself to see beyond just the first move. See, average agents think like checker players. They see one move. Call didn't convert, so prospecting doesn't work. Top agents think like chess players. They see 3, 5, 10 moves ahead. This call right now plants a seed, which then leads into follow-up, which then leads into a pricing conversation, which leads into a listing, which leads into referrals, which feeds my entire business forever. Same action, completely different way of seeing it. So the psychological hack is to ask two questions. One way is to rewire your brain for second order thinking. It's to ask two simple questions before every decision. One, what's the immediate consequence if I do this? And two, what's the delayed consequence if I keep doing this for 90 days or a year or 5 years? Eat the cookie equals immediate pleasure, long-term weight gain. Make the calls equals immediate discomfort, but long-term pipeline security. This reframes your choices. Suddenly, the real cost becomes obvious. Well, that's because second order thinking creates freedom. Here's the kicker. Once you adapt a second order thinking, you gain freedom. Freedom from guilt because you understand why the silent weeks matter. Freedom from shiny objects because you know nothing works instantly. Freedom from comparison because you realize everyone else is stuck playing checkers while you're playing chess. You stop chasing hacks and start planting seeds. You stop demanding instant results and start compounding inevitable ones. That shift alone will separate you from 90% of all the other agents in the industry. So, what's the identity shift here? Average agents say, I do what feels good now. Top agents say, I do what creates power later. Average agents say, I avoid discomfort today, where top agents say, I trade discomfort today for dominance tomorrow. Average agents are playing checkers. Top agents are playing chess. Who do you want to be? All right, so let's put together an action plan based on everything we've talked about in this video so you can actually do something with the information rather than just mental masturbation. So the hidden mechanics of memory. So here's something sneaky that most agents don't even realize, but that is that your memory is lying to you. So psychologists call this negativity bias. It's where your brain is wired to remember negative events more vividly than positive ones. Why? Evolution. Thousands of years ago, it mattered more to remember the tiger that almost killed you than the nice breeze you felt by the river. But in business, that bias works against you. You remember the one nasty hang-up on the cold call, but you forget the 10 polite, great conversations you had. You'll remember the client who ghosted you, but you forget the dozens of appreciated your presence in your meeting and all the value you provided. You'll remember the video that didn't do very well, it flopped, but you forget the steady impressions building of your authority over time. Add this to the recency effect. You overweight what happened on the most recent call. Like if yesterday's calls didn't book an appointment, you believe, again, prospecting just simply doesn't work, even though the last 3 months prove otherwise. And then there's memory decay, of course. The fact that we simply forget the majority of our experiences, which means that when you look back on your efforts, you're only recalling small fragments. And usually they're the frustrating ones. So what happens? You trick yourself into thinking, I'm inconsistent, I'm failing, nothing is working, but that's not true. You just don't have an accurate record of what's really going on. This is why tracking is your psychological weapon. I stress this so much to agents, and it's like in 1 year, out the other. Tracking matters so much more than people think. Tracking isn't just about accountability. It's about memory. It protects your brain from distortions. When you log your dials, your conversations, your appointments, your CMAs, your nurtures, listing signs, etc., you're building an objective record that says, listen, I'm the type of person who shows up. I actually do the work. Now, when the brain whispers, you're not doing enough, you have proof that says otherwise. When doubt creeps in, this isn't working. You can look at the data and say, actually, I've had 73 conversations this week, and statistically, it's going to take just a few more to get an actual listing. Tracking transforms your relationship with the silent weeks. Instead of fear, you feel confident because you can see the seeds in the ground, even if the sprouts haven't broken the surface yet. Because this is the scoreboard effect in action. You see, in psychology, what gets measured gets improved. This is called the Hawthorne effect. When people know they're being observed, they change their behavior. Even if you're observing yourself, it works. You make better choices. You push through resistance. You stay consistent longer. Because now every choice isn't just a fleeting action. It's one line on the scoreboard. And humans are wired to want to win the game once there is an actual scoreboard. That's why you need one. So let's put all of this into action. So I'm going to give you just a simple 7-day action plan to start rewiring your identity, your habits, and obviously your results. So day 1 is to actually build a scoreboard. So just create a simple spreadsheet or CRM dashboard, and I want you to track these 6 KPIs. Number of dials, number of conversations, number of appointments set, number of CMAs sent, number of nurtures, and listings signed. This isn't busy work, it's your new reality check. Day 2, calendar the non-negotiables. Block 2 45-minute prospecting sessions per day. Block 1 30-minute follow-up session per day. Block 1 15-minute pipeline review per day. Protect these like oxygen because they are to your business. Day 4, turn on your nurture engine. Record a 30, 60, 90-second market update video. Send it to your sphere of influence. Post it on Instagram. Email it to your list. Get it everywhere. Text it to your 10 hottest leads. You're not being salesy. You're staying relevant and top of mind. Day 5, start building out your listing machine. Just do one simple CMA per day for your hottest seller leads. After every new listing or sale, circle prospect or door knock around that listing. This creates the ripple effect and credibility in the neighborhood for you to start getting more leads and more listings in that area. Day 6, commit to a second order habit. Choose one habit that feels hard right now, but maybe compounds later. As an example, maybe 25 conversations a day, or one video a week, or one daily follow-up. Commit to 90 days minimum, no excuses. And then day 7 is to review and reset. Look at the scoreboard, look at your tracker, and then ask 2 questions. What's compounding and what's the constraint? Remember, the goal of this 7-day action plan isn't just activity, it's shifting who you are. It's creating a new identity. You're not just prospecting, you're becoming a prospector. You're becoming a professional who can be trusted. You're not just following up, you're becoming the type of person that always finishes what they start. And once you become that person, your results become inevitable because listings flow to consistency, and consistency flows from identity. So here's the big picture. Your current business is not the result of what you did this week. It's the result of what you've become 6 months ago. The delay curve is real. The trap of short-term thinking is real. The law of compounding choices is real. Second order consequences are real, but so is your power to shift it. The agent who wins isn't the one with the best CRM, the fanciest scripts, or the most social media followers. The agent who wins is the one who becomes the person who can stay consistent through the silent weeks. Trust the compounding curve and choose second order power over first order comfort. That's who you must become. That's who you're capable of becoming. And if you do, you won't just succeed, you'll become unstoppable. And this whole video was about what? Delayed gratification. And so if you're still watching this video right here, first off, you deserve a lot of credit. You are the type of person who is shifting your future self. And now comes the benefit for those delayed gratifications, those delayed results. And so if you're still watching this video, I'm going to do something. I'm going to offer something that I never do here on YouTube, which is to jump on a Zoom call to show you exactly what it is that I'm doing with agents that I coach personally to help them build a 6-figure listing agent business on a Zoom call. It's a one-on-one private Zoom call where we'll map out your entire 12-month business plan that will take you from where you are right now to generating a 6 or even multi-6-figure income over the next 12 months. We'll walk you through that plan step by step. There'll be a link in the description. Feel free to pick a day and time that works best for you. Appreciate the time today. We'll see you guys in the next one.